Thanks for waking up early and coming to the talk. Good morning. I'm Brad Andalman. I'm one of the creators of Vellum. The other creator of Vellum is Brad West, sitting right over there. And so today we're going to be talking about your Vellum workflow. And so yeah, and want to give you a quick overview of the stuff we'll be covering today. First, we're going to talk about how to get stuff into and out of Vellum, so importing and re-importing your manuscript. We'll talk about writing in Vellum. It's something that we hear from, a lot of users that they've started writing in Vellum. They're surprised that they can, and sometimes they ask whether they should. So we'll talk about some features that make that easier. We're also going to talk about sending your manuscript to an editor, how to do that. Then we're going to get to a brand new feature just released called Reusing Elements. I'll give a little demo of that as well so you can see what that's about. And then I hope there will be time to have some questions and answers. But if there isn't, I will be hanging out for a little bit after, and we can chat then. So before we get started, hopefully most of you know that this is Vellum, but can we just get a show of hands just so I can gauge the talk? How many people are Vellum users here? Okay. Maybe I should ask, how many people are not Vellum users here? Okay. Oh, great. Okay, good. Okay, so I will cover this real quickly then. This is Vellum. This is what it looks like. The left-hand pane we call the navigator, and that's what shows you all of the elements, the chapters, the front matter, the back matter of your book. The middle pane we call the text editor, and that's where you can make tweaks, edits to your book. And then the rightmost pane is the preview, and that is what your final book is going to look like. Right now it's showing a preview of your print edition. You can tell because it has that beautiful heading background there, which is a print-specific feature, but you can change your preview to show you live updates for your ebooks as well in a variety of devices like Kindle Fires or iPads, etc. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a book in Vellum, but how do you get your book into Vellum? So we call that importing, and Vellum imports a docx file. And this is because where you write your books, we realize is like a really personal choice. People, there are a ton of apps out there, Scrivener, Word, Pages, so basically write wherever you want. You can, from almost every word processing app, you can export as a docx. A docx is not a Microsoft-specific format. It's actually an open format, so all of these applications can create a docx, and Vellum will be able to import it. But because a docx is a document-based format, there's no notion of, real notion of like chapters. So what Vellum does is on import is it will analyze the structure of your manuscript, and it will do its best to figure out where those chapter breaks are. We'll talk a little bit about how to make that seamless. If Vellum gets it wrong, you can always clean it up in Vellum, and we've tried to make it really easy to make those fixes in Vellum with a minimum of effort. So how do you get clean imports? So here I've got my Word document. It's, there's not a ton of formatting going on, but the most important thing here to communicate to Vellum that, that you're beginning a new chapter is to use the heading 1 style. That's built into Word, that's built into most word processing apps. And this isn't true for just chapters, but if you have like a prologue or something like that, basically those titles, you want to use heading 1. For chapters in particular, the body matter of your book, the meat of your book, we recommend naming them sort of as follows. Either if they're untitled chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. If they're titled then chapter 1, colon, you know. And so here you can see I've got the chapter 1, Strange Man's Arrival, and voila, when I use file import, it comes in, Vellum notices, it detects all of the heading ones, and you can see on the left-hand side in the navigator, it's found immediately all of the chapters, making it a lot easier to switch chapter by chapter than it is, say, if you were in Word. So that's great. For those experienced Vellum users here, you know that Vellum offers a lot of other text features other than some of the stuff that we're showing here. So last year we added text conversations and written notes, and there's the ability to use alignment blocks or block quotes. All of those things we call text features. And you can import those as well by tagging them in your Word manuscript. So, and the way that you do that is with styles. So style names in your manuscript can guide what Vellum imports. You don't have to do that. You can be fine with heading 1 and create them in Vellum, but if you want to get a head start and you're familiar with styles in the word processing application that you're using, you can use them. So as you can see here, this is the word, it's a little blurry, but this is the word style pane. And these are just some of the style names that Vellum recognizes. You can see, Vellum text conversation there, things like Vellum sans serif, things like that. So this is possible in most writing apps. Word, obviously, Pages, Scrivener. One exception is Google Docs. They don't offer this yet, so if you're writing your manuscript in Google Docs, this won't be possible for you. But most other full-featured word processing apps do allow that. So how to do this would be the subject probably of a whole nother talk. But instead, if you're interested in this, if you're a style guru and you're all about that, recommend taking a look at the advanced import docs in our help pages on our importing help page. All right, so now we've imported our manuscript. And let's say that you're someone who loves working in Word and wants to fix your typos or edits or feedback that you get from ARC readers in Word. But you've already imported it to Vellum because you were super excited and wanted to see how it looked. And so what we recommend doing then is using a feature called re-import. And with re-import, which is accessible in Vellum by going to the File menu and choosing re-import, Vellum remembers, the Vellum document you're working on remembers the last manuscript that you imported. So you can see this dialog comes up and says, hey, would you like to import any changes from the Word manuscript that you imported last time? And so that makes it really easy. So for instance, if your workflow is to write your book in Word, import it into Vellum to see what it looks like, but you like to keep that Word manuscript as your sort of canonical manuscript, make those changes, go back to Vellum, just hit re-import. And what will happen then is Vellum will replace any of the previously imported elements with the new content with the content from that Word file. But it will leave in place any of the front and back matter elements, any element really that you've created in Vellum. So what's nice is you can write the sort of meat of your book in whatever Word application you're using to write your book, and add your front and matter, like your copyright or your about the author or your also by, and you can, and then re-import will just replace the body matter of your book if you structure it that way. So sort of in graphical form, that would be this workflow. It would be sort of work in Word, import it into Vellum. But if Word is your sort of primary place you like to work, go back, make those edits in Word, and then use Vellum's re-import to do that. I'm using Word here, but like I said on that earlier slide, you can use whatever writing app you want. Okay, so that's using some other application to write your book. But we have been hearing more and more about people who really like writing in Vellum, and sort of like two main reasons for that. We hear that people like that it's really minimal. Like Word is super powerful. It's Scrivener's fantastic too. But sometimes when you're writing, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we've tried to keep this minimal. And the other is that people like to see their book sort of as it looks like a book in Vellum's preview pane. So we'll talk a little bit about the text editor. It's full-featured text editor. There is find and replace. There is spelling and grammar checking. There is word count. There is all this stuff that you really expect in a full-featured writing editor. There are also a couple of settings that we get asked about a lot that we wanted to make sure people knew about. And those are accessible by going to Vellum's settings panel and choosing the text editor pane here. And there are two things here. There's changing editor, font, and so font family, like the font that you're using, as well as the font size for those of us who are maybe, I've had to recently get progressive lenses, so I've had to bump my font size up recently. Anyhow. And there's also this stay light in dark mode, which is useful for those of you who are switching to dark mode to make it easier on your eyes. That is just a display setting on your Mac that makes sort of everything go a lot darker. So I've got so those are the two main settings we have for the text editor. These are a little bit easier to see in a movie. So here in this movie, this is dark mode. And so if you go to settings, you can see here, I'm just going to bump up the font. And this only affects your writing pane. It doesn't affect the font size in the final book, but you can see here, it's a little bit easier now to read in that middle pane. And then if I like stay light in dark mode, even though it's nice to sometimes see the chrome of the window darker, it can be nice to write your book still in black on white. It's a little bit less hard on the eyes. So those two features are really nice for writing in Vellum. The preview as well, like I said, some people really like seeing the preview. It gives them a sense of accomplishment seeing it like formatted on the right. But if you're really in the zone, you may want to hide the preview. And you can do that. That's this little button here. So hide the preview, go to town, and then show the preview to look at it when you're done. Also, a little hint is that Vellum does a lot of advanced layout when it's generating the final edition of your book. And you can see that layout, that final layout, in this thing called proof mode. But you don't want Vellum to be doing that automatic layout every time you're typing or writing your book. So if you are showing a print, we recommend making sure that you're using draft mode. And that will just make everything be a little bit more responsive. You can always switch to proof mode when you're doing that final proofing step. And then lastly, there's a feature sort of buried in the menu. It's in chapter, show current paragraph, and preview. And then it's really, I have it memorized, it's Command Y. And so what's nice about this is that if I want to see the paragraph that say that word glasses is in, I can double click on glasses, hit Command Y, and then Vellum's preview will automatically highlight and show you. I'll do that one more time. So if I select glasses, hit Command Y, and you can see the preview highlight the paragraph and show you where that is in your manuscript. So if you like writing in Vellum, your workflow is pretty simple. That's this. You just stay in Vellum. You write in Vellum, you edit in Vellum, and then you export your final books and upload them away. So that's great, but that's also not required. As we most people work sort of that first workflow that we showed you. And also, there's the additional issue of, well, it'd be nice if you just worked in a vacuum and you could, and you were everything, you were your professional editor, but there are plenty of times where you need to involve other people, for instance, if you're sending to an editor. So what happens if you need to send to an editor? Well, and most editors prefer Word, so you can't just send them your Vellum file. And good news, Vellum can export to docx. And that's in our file menu, export content as Word file, and that will export everything back out all of the changes that you made in Vellum, et cetera, to your docx. And what's kind of nice about that is that Vellum will export the manuscript sort of in the way that it expects it when it would be imported. So you can see here that I've selected the chapter. It's formatted using the same rules that we recommend you format with if you're writing in Word to start with. And in fact, if it's when I select it, you can see in Word style pane that it's got the heading 1 set and everything. So Vellum, this can be a nice way to learn, like, oh, what are the style names that I should choose when I'm writing, for the features that I've added to my Vellum file. This workflow is a little more complicated. It means, like, we've got our book in Vellum. If I'm going to an editor, I'm going to export it to a docx, send that to my editor. My editor is going to do the editing and is going to send me back the Word manuscript. And instead of using that re-import, we're going to actually just import this as a whole new book because it's a whole new file. You're getting it back from your editor, and it's got all of the information in it. So you're just going to want to create a new Vellum document, file, import Word file, and it should look just as it did as you exported it, but with your changes from your editor. All right, so we've been focusing mostly on writing one book and how to improve the workflow for that. But hopefully, now you can use that information, and now let's say you've written tons of books. And so you have, that sort of creates a little bit of a problem with your workflow when you write a new book, because you now have a back catalog of Vellum files. And when you write a new book, you have a new title that you want in your also by, for instance, and then you have to go back to all of your other Vellum files and update them. So you got more issues. And in Vellum, we've told people, we've made it really easy. You can drag your also by element from one to the other, and so we've told people how to do this, and we thought that it was relatively easy and straightforward. But when you've got a lot of books, no matter how easy it is, it's still a lot of dragging and deleting. And so wanted to talk about a very, very new feature called reused elements. And reused elements allow you to connect an element to a source. So an element in another file, say a template file. And when that source changes, you can update the element, the reused element, with a single click. So if you look here, thank you. So you look here, that was a changed element. Let me see if I can't play it again. So here, I'm going to click on the changed. I'm going to indicate I want to update this element, and then boom, it's going to get two new titles from the also by that I've edited in one single place. So if I have 30 books, I can edit my template also by element, and then all my other 30 books can just be updated and generated. And I'll give you a demo about this in a little bit. But let's talk about how to set this up first really quickly. So the first is that there's a new command in Vellum, reuse elements from. And this is accessible from the file menu. Again, I'm going to give a demo of all of this. You go down to reuse elements from, and then you choose the template that you want. So it's any Vellum file, actually, but I've created a Vellum file for my front and back matter for my particular series. And in this case, I'll choose it and be presented with a little dialog that says, hey, what elements from this book, or this template file, do you want to reuse? And it's going to show me the front matter and the back matter. There's lots of details involved in this, but the high level is, hey, here I'm going to reuse my blurbs element, my copyright, my also by, and my about the author. And when I reuse them, those elements are added to my Vellum file. And you can see that they're added because there's a giant blue badge when I select one of these reused elements, making it hopefully very obvious that, hey, this element is coming from another file, basically. And when that other file changes, then that badge will update to this sort of purple color, telling you that, hey, this file, this element, this has changed, and you may want to update it. And so here's a sort of close-up on that. When you click on that changed button, you'll get this dialog. You'll see this in the demo, but it has a bunch of options. It shows you where that element comes from. That's the file name, the element that's being reused, and then gives you the option to update it as well as, when it changed. All right, so that's a lot to cover in slides. So let's see if I can actually give a little demo here. All right, so here we are with our favorite demo book, The Invisible Man. And I've edited it, I'm all set, it reads great, but now I want to add my front and back matter. This is part of my, of a series, and I already have sort of like standard front and back matter that I'd like to add. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to File, Use Elements From, and then here's my front and back matter. So I'm going to click on that, and fantastic. I can see the elements that I can reuse, that are in my front matter, that are in my back matter. I can even say I don't want to reuse the blurb in this book, or I've already written a copyright. I don't want to import the copyright. In this case, I want them all. So I'm going to hit Reuse Selected, and there it is. It's added those elements. You can see I've got my back matter down here. I've got my front matter up here. It's reused. It's imported those elements, or not imported, it's reused those elements. And you can see that this badge is there, indicate that it's reused. My title page is not reused, my copyright is reused. So let's take a look. The other thing about reused elements is that you'll notice that the text editor is a little bit dimmer. And that's because you can't make changes to these reused elements. They're coming from another book. So for instance, let's say and you can see here, sorry, that About the Author has a similar dimmed out behavior. Any reused element is going to be uneditable in the file that you're reusing it. But let's say I decide, I need to, to make a change to this reused element. So I can open that file up however I want. One convenient way to open that up is to look here and say, look, this element is coming from from the front and back matter file. And so I can hit this little arrow, and there we go. And this shows me my template file. So we can quickly talk a little bit how I constructed this template file. I created a brand new Vellum file and just dragged in the elements that I wanted to be, that I want to reuse across. So that's a lot of people are already doing this because they have to do it. They often have these template files because they drag to their new books. So if you already have one created, that's great. You can start using it that way with the reuse workflow. But if not, it's really easy to create one. So here you can see it just consists of the blurbs, the copyright, the About the Author, and the Also By. So let's change this copyright. I'm not going to publish this in 2023. I'm going to publish this next year. So I'm going to change its copyright. I'm also I feel like more than is too wordy. I'm going to change this to over 50 novels. I'm going to hit Save. So I've made changes to my template here. I could also add more books if I want, but for now, I've just made changes to the About the Author and the copyright. And look, as soon as I come back to my file here, it's indicating that, hey, something has changed. My Also By is not changed, but the About the Author is changed. And I can come here and I can click, and you can say, look, it changed 36 seconds ago. And if I want to update, I can update it, and you can see that it switched to over here. I'll do that again. Go to the copyright, it's still showing my old 2023, but I know I'm going to publish this next year, so I'm going to change this and update, and you can see it switched to 2024. These are sort of, I don't expect you'll be changing the year of your copyright. This is more just a very obvious way to show you, like when you change something in your template file, you know, in your source file, it's how easy it is to update it in the file in the Vellum file that uses it. Okay, so now my file is completely up to date. I'm going to save it. I'm going to quit it, and that's that. Now I do have 2 other books in the series. Oh, you have a question? Yes, exactly. No, that's a great question. I'm smiling because I was like, oh, do I want to get into that detail? And I think it's a great detail. So, yeah. So the question is, so let me really quickly do this. I will come up here, and so let's say that I don't want to change my template file because we know that that's going to affect all the books in my series. But I know I have a specific change to this copy right here. I can come up to reuse, and I can hit detach. So that basically breaks the link. I'm not reusing it anymore. So yeah, absolutely. But I have made 2 changes, and I have another book in my series, Time Machine. And you may have noticed, it's a little bit hard to see to those in the back, but there's a little summary icon down here. Can everyone see that? And it's showing this purple color indicating that something's changed in my book. So rather than having to know or go through element by element what's changed, I can click on this, and it will show me a reuse summary of the entire book. And rather than go element by element and hit update, I can simply hit update all. And so great, this has changed 3 minutes ago, this has changed 2 minutes ago, that's great, I want those updates, update all, I'm done. So that's a really fast way. You add a title to your also by, you open up all your books, you hit update all. Another possibility though is you're just going so fast, and you're like, you know what, I need to generate this, and I need to publish this today. So you hit generate, Vellum will warn you and prompt you to say, hey, there are reused elements that have changes. Would you like to update them now? So when you hit generate, you can immediately hit update. And of course, you can also say, I'm not ready to accept these changes with all the power is in your hands, but I want to update this. I hit update, it updates, I hit generate, I'm done. So yeah, so that's reuse. Let me come back here. So that's the demo. So where can you reuse elements? Well, the demo and everything I've talked about has been about front and back matter. And we think that that's a super compelling place to use it. And if you have multiple series, you might have multiple template files. If you have multiple pen names, you might have multiple template files. But these are just Vellum files. And you can reuse any Vellum file. So an example for that might be book teasers. So you're writing a series and you're finishing book 1, and you have the first 3 chapters ready to go of book 2, and you want to include that in your ebook as a teaser. You can do that as well. You can reuse those chapters in book 1. And what's nice about that is that as you're writing book 2, if you fix typos or change a character's name or do something, you go back to book 1, you can simply regenerate, and everything will be updated for you as soon as you hit update. Another use case here is box sets. And box sets, if you use Vellum's box set wizard, you pick the Vellum files you want to include in a box set, and then Vellum will create the box set for you. And previously, if you made changes to those included files in the individual Vellum files, you'd have to go make those changes in the box set or recreate the box set. And now, in the new version of Vellum, those will all be reused by default, so automatically. So if you have a box set of your series and you fix a typo or whatever in book 2 of that series, you can just go back to your box set, hit generate. Vellum will tell you, hey, there's some elements that need updating. Hit update, you're good to go. You can be sure that you're using the same version that the individual book that you published will be up to date in your box set.
Retroactively, the box set's created?
No, so retroactively, no, so those box sets are not reusing elements. So those are, so you will have to, if you want this behavior, you will have to create those box sets again. So this is available now in Vellum 3.6. We released that yesterday. So it's hot off the presses, yes.
So sorry, I came in a little bit late, but is there an update? If you already have Vellum, can you update to that, or do you have to rebuy the whole thing?
No, it's just an update.
Okay.
So so if you already have Vellum, just check for updates. If you, hopefully your Vellum is set to automatically update, and it will prompt you, say, hey, a new update is available. You do not have to rebuy. Just update, you get this brand new powerful feature all for free. And so so we covered a lot. We covered a bunch of different workflows, and then reuse, and also how reuse can help with other workflows like box sets and teasers. All of this is covered in our help pages. So you can always go to help.vellum.pub or scan this QR code. It's kind of hard to see on this screen here, but in the upper right corner is a search field, so you can always search for any help topics. For those of you who aren't current Vellum users, you can download Vellum if you have a Mac and use it for free. You only need to purchase when you're happy with how your book looks and you want to generate your final files. So go to vellum.pub, play around with it. All of the stuff that we've shown you, you can experience and play with. Vellum.pub or that QR code. And yes, to your point, all of this stuff is in an update that you get for free if you're already a Vellum user. And that, great. I talked a little quickly, so we have more time than I thought then for questions. So feel free.
Okay, so I love Vellum. It is probably the best decision I ever made in my publishing journey.
Thank you.
And I can tell you, other people who were writing in my genre, and layout is like a nightmare for them. And they hate it, and every time they make a change, they have to go have somebody make the change, and it's just not even worth it. And I even bought a Mac for it, and I was anti-Mac. So, okay. Anyway, all that to say, changed my life. All right, so my question is, I finally am done with the series, and I'm ready for that fancy box set feature. And when I go in to click the button on box set, like nothing, it shows all of my files grayed out. So it gives me the option of either going back to my original Word document or using the document in Vellum. I'd rather use it in Vellum. I don't know why that's happening, if I'm like a one-off, or is there fancy, just something else I need to be doing? So Vellum, the box set will open sort of the standard Mac open panel. And if you're seeing those files grayed out, then it sounds like you might be looking at like the generated files, like the EPUB files or things like that. Okay.
So what you want to do is it sounds like what you want to do are select those Vellum files, and you're just going to have to navigate to where you saved your Vellum files. And Vellum presents them all really nice in the startup window at the beginning, but like where you save those is actually under your control. Although it's kind of easy to forget where those are.
Yeah.
So one way to do that is to go to the startup window, and there's a little, let me show you. I'm going to try to do this live. So if you forget where where your Vellum files are saved. One, Vellum will tell you the folder that it's saved in. Look, it's saved in Vellum files. That may not be that useful for you, but you can click on this little arrow to the right, and it will open it on the other screen when you're giving a presentation. So, one, don't be giving a presentation when you do this. And two, it will show you right here, it'll open it. And so you can see that, oh, this is great. This is on my desktop in 20Books, in Vellum files, The War of the Worlds.
Okay, so on mine, where War of the Worlds is,
Yeah.
that's what's grayed out. Like
But that's because you're my gut is that you're selecting like a generated file, like an EPUB. This is actually a Vellum file, and it will have the star. So if that's not the case, write us, send us a screenshot. But we've had a few people it's an easy it's an easy mistake to make.
I thought it would be.
So you'll want to find your Vellum files, and you can actually, another way to like find all your Vellum files is to go to the Mac Finder, do kind Vellum, and it will find all of your Vellum files for you. We do have plans to make it a little bit easier in the box set wizard to find your files. So but until we add that, you'll have to use the Mac Open Panel to navigate.
That's helpful. Thank
Sure. Yeah, and if it isn't working for you, send us help.vellum.pub has a contact us. Send us a screenshot. We'll be happy to give you more specific directions. Yes.
I'll give another Vellum testimonial. I've had it for years. It's one of the 2 best investments I've ever made
Thanks.
into my publishing career. So put that out there too. I have had experiences where I have the file open. I have it in print preview because I want to check the flow of the words and such, make sure I don't have any widows and orphans and things that are lining up wrong. But I have found that sometimes what I see in preview isn't necessarily how the PDF is produced. It can be a line or 2 off sometimes, and of course messes up the entire flow. Is that the draft in print mode that you were discussing?
So the answer is yes.
Okay.
The question is, why does the print preview sometimes look different when you look at it in Vellum versus when you're looking at it in the PDF? And so yes, what happens here is that you won't see it here, but when you switch between draft and proof mode, in draft mode, Vellum does a minimal amount of layout for you. In proof mode, it does things like it prevents widows, it will balance page spreads, it will attempt to lengthen the final page of a chapter, it will do all of that stuff, which can take a lot of time. So if you really are wanting to know the final version of your print edition, you'll want to make sure to be in proof mode. But you won't want to be writing your manuscript in proof mode, switch back to draft mode. That'll make things a lot faster. But it will be identical in proof mode and what you see in the final PDF. Sure. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, wasn't going to come this morning because I'm a little congested, but then I got the email about this reuse elements thing, and
Cool.
I hightailed it down here. so my question's about that. I have like 60 some books and translations and box set. I mean, it's a lot. So this is super exciting to have. But I like to be super customized with books, and so I like the detach and edit feature. One of the things I do is like in a front matter, I'll have some bit of front matter that's in all the books, but the first part of it is like the blurb for that book, so it's specific. And so I would have to detach and edit it and then put in that book-specific blurb. And then is there a way for me to reattach? No.
There's not really so there isn't a built-in way to reattach. You'd have to delete the element and then reuse again.
Right.
Which, the granularity right now for reused elements is at the element level. So you can't
Sure.
say, I just want this bit of text reused. But if you if you had two different blurbs elements, one that was book specific and one that was, for the series or something like that, like
Right.
you could have one blurbs that was specific to the book and
Right.
another blurb element that was reused. Does that make-
Right. Yes, no, that does make sense. And the other issue is there's some back matter that I just put at the end of my epilogue because,
Yes.
certain vendors don't like it, or, I want people to read that.
We don't want to name names.
No. And so what I'm wondering is, can I create an element maybe and have it in the file, and then I can copy it and move it? That would just be easy for me, and then just suppress the element when I go to generate the file?
We don't offer a way to
suppress.
suppress the element. I mean, I
Okay.
guess I can think.
I know, I'm getting super
I-
specific here.
yeah,
like,
I mean,
customized for me, right?
I could talk about, if you could make it a print-only element, if this.
That's what I was thinking,
If
something
you're
like
only
that.
doing
Yeah,
it for
right.
Amazon to pick something at random, and,
Yeah.
and yes, you can, so I actually haven't, do you know if this is gonna work? Yes, it works. So you can select stuff in a reused element. So you can update it and then copy it from that. And then I just created a new element here, and then, I pasted. So
Okay.
you can copy and paste from the text of a reused element.
From a reused element. Okay, well, that might work.
But-
I'm so excited about this. Thank you guys so much. You just constantly put out great updates, and keep it coming.
Yeah. Thanks. Hi.
My question is about not saving things. So the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous about Vellum is I'm always afraid that I'm going to make a change by accident. And so if I were in Word, let's say, and I opened a file to check something and then I accidentally hit return, then I'd know I could just exit out of the file and not save it when I do that. But Vellum is behaving in a different way. So is there some way, like if I want to open a Vellum file and check that I used a certain word and I did, so now I want to get out, how do I navigate so that I'm sure that I'm not saving changes I don't want saved?
Okay. So the question was, how do I make sure that I'm not accidentally making changes and saving them? And so one way is to look up here at the title editor, or the title bar here. You can see that it's edited. So if you accidentally make a change, and you're worried about that, you can say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to undo. So you'll know whether you've made any changes this time when you've opened Vellum if it says edited. The other thing you can do is if you've made changes and you've saved your file and you're not sure, and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that, you can also go up to here and do revert to last opened and browse all versions. So you can actually go back in time and through to your previously saved version or the version before that if you're worried that you may have made a change. Sure. I think we have 2 minutes left, so we have one more question, I think.
Can you talk a little bit about what might be on the horizon? I love the recent changes to it, and just wondering what might be next.
The question was, what's next? And the answer is, we can't tell you. So we, yes. But we do listen to feedback, and so if you have something you're particularly interested in, please write us at help.vellum.pub at our contact page. And yeah, we are still putting, since we released Vellum 3.6 from 20Books last night, we're still sort of dealing with that. And so we're going to put a few more finishing touches on that before moving on to the next big thing, which we're not going to talk about at this time. We do have 49 seconds left.
This one's a quick one. I had online asking if the importing with style feature will work on LibreOffice in place of Microsoft Word.
So the question is, will using named styles work in LibreOffice? And the answer is yes. LibreOffice is pretty similar to Word in that regard, and it should work. There are minor differences with LibreOffice that we've run into. If that person has problems, send us the docx exported from LibreOffice, and we'll take a look. We have 14 seconds left and one more person. Go, go, go.
This is a question for really you or anybody in the room. I don't use Vellum yet. I'm a lifelong Mac user and have a design background, so I'm leaning towards it. But as you know, there's competitors in the market, and I'm like trying to compare. So if anybody wants to make a case for why not to use a competitor, I'd love to hear it.
So please go visit the, please go mob this nice person. Thank you.